All right, ready to dive into something kind of incredible. We're talking flow state, that zone athletes hit when they're performing at their absolute peak. And we're going to get into the nitty-gritty of how they do it, what's going on in their brains, and how we can, maybe borrow some of their secrets.
Yeah, you know what's really struck me? It's not just about, like, hitting that perfect tennis serve or nailing a presentation at work. These action and adventure athletes, they're using flow in life or death situations.
Okay, now you're making my palms sweat a little. So, who are we talking about here? Who are these flow ninjas?
Well, one name that immediately comes to mind is Shane McConkey. This guy was a legend, totally fearless. We're talking extreme skiing, base jumping, even invented a whole new sport, ski basing. Imagine launching yourself off a cliff with skis on.
Okay, I am definitely getting chills now. What drives someone to do that? I mean, I read he even got banned from a competition for doing an illegal backflip.
Right, and that's just it. McConkey's story really highlights how intertwined flow and this constant boundary pushing really are. It's like
Yeah.
one feeds the other.
It's like he needed that constant challenge to tap into that flow state. And it wasn't just him, was it? There's Danny Way, the skateboarder, who decided to jump the Great Wall of China on a skateboard.
Don't forget with a broken ankle. And this was after someone had already died trying the same stunt. Talk about pressure.
That's insane. I mean, to pull that off, it couldn't just be physical skill, right?
Exactly. We're
Yeah.
talking about mental resilience on a whole other level. That kind of laser focus, that ability to perform under that insane amount of stress, that's flow in action.
It's like their minds are just as important as their bodies in those moments. Then, of course, we have Laird Hamilton, the big wave surfer. This is the guy who conquered waves like Jaws and Teahupoo waves that people thought were impossible to ride.
And it wasn't just that he rode them. The maneuvers he was pulling off, they were like nothing anyone had ever seen before. It's like his brain was coming up with these new moves on the fly while he was riding this massive wall of water. That's the power of flow, that spontaneous creativity, that intuition. It's almost like they tap into something we don't even have access to normally.
Okay, hold on, because my mind is officially blown. We're talking about something beyond talent and practice here. How are they getting into this superhuman state?
Well, a lot of it comes down to the work of Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi. He's the psychologist who actually coined the term flow. And his research identified 10 core components of this state. Things like intense focus, merging your awareness with the action, and this feeling of complete control, even in the middle of chaos.
It's like they found a secret level in the human potential video game.
And guess what?
Yeah.
We can all access it. It's kind of like they hacked the system, right?
Okay, so how do we get in on that hack? Where do we even start?
Well, to understand the hack, got to understand the system, right? And the system we're talking about here is the brain.
Ah, getting all science-y on me. Love it.
Right. So there's this neuroscientist, Dr. Leslie Sherlin, doing some fascinating work on this. And his journey is kind of interesting. He was this crazy talented musician in college, like top of his class. But then he hit a wall, just couldn't keep up.
What, like a musician's version of writer's block?
Kind of, yeah. But for him, it sparked this question. What's going on in the brains of those who just excel effortlessly? What's the difference?
Okay, so what did he find? Did those flow ninjas have some kind of superpower brain hidden in there?
Well, turns out they do have something special going on. Sherlin found that elite athletes, those who can consistently perform under pressure, they have these incredibly smooth, efficient brainwave patterns when they're making decisions compared to, well, the rest of us.
So you're saying there's a difference in brain activity between, say, someone who can land a 900 on a skateboard and someone like me who, trips over air?
It's not just about coordination, though that's part of it. Our brains operate on these different frequencies, creating these electrical patterns called brain waves. Alpha, beta, theta, gamma, each one linked to a different state of mind.
Brain waves. It's like our brains have their own radio stations.
Right. And these different stations are tuned to different frequencies for different tasks, like alpha waves, for example. Those are associated with creativity, relaxation. Remember that spontaneous creativity we were talking about with Laird Hamilton? That's alpha waves in action.
So when my brain is in chill mode, it's pumping out alpha waves.
Exactly. And then you got these gamma waves, which are linked to those aha moments, those flashes of insight, like when you suddenly get a solution to a problem that's been bugging you.
So it's like these athletes, their brains are these finely tuned instruments hitting the right notes at the right time for peak performance. But what's actually conducting this brainwave orchestra? Are they just wired differently?
This is where it gets really cool. Remember those feel-good chemicals we hear about: dopamine, norepinephrine, endorphins? Well, flow, triggers a cascade of these performance-enhancing chemicals in the brain.
Whoa, so it's like a chemical party up there. No wonder it feels so good.
It's a neurochemical cocktail that not only makes you feel amazing, it also sharpens focus, reduces anxiety, and sends creativity through the roof. It's probably why flow feels so good and why people chase that feeling in, well, sometimes less healthy ways.
So these flow junkies, they're basically getting a natural high that makes them feel fantastic. A&D perform better. That's like a superpower.
It's like a shortcut to this optimized state of mind and body that we usually think takes years of training to achieve. But these athletes, they've found a way to tap into it more readily.
Okay, but hold on. We've all heard about the 10,000-hour rule, deliberate practice, all that stuff. Do these athletes even follow those rules? They don't seem like the type to spend hours in a lab, analyzing their performance.
And that's what's so fascinating. They kind of throw those traditional rules out the window. Action and adventure athletes, they often come from disadvantaged backgrounds. Their training isn't always structured, and yet they excel.
It's like real-world application over textbook knowledge. But how does that translate to mastery?
It's about constantly seeking those peak experiences, those moments of flow. And by doing that, they're hacking the system. They turn play into progress, driven by intrinsic motivation, that desire to push boundaries, to embrace the unknown. It becomes their path to mastery.
So they're not just practicing to get good, they're using flow to turn their passion into progress.
Exactly. And the results, well, you see them. They're constantly pushing the limits of what we thought was humanly possible.
It's like they're tapping into a different level of human potential. It makes you wonder, what if we could all apply this to other areas of our lives? What innovations, what breakthroughs could we achieve?
And it's not just about individual potential. Flow can elevate collective performance, too. Take, for example, Camp 4 in Yosemite Valley. It's this legendary spot for climbers, known for its collaborative spirit and the speed at which climbers improve there.
So it's like this breeding ground for flow, everyone feeding off each other's energy.
What's fascinating about Camp 4 is it embodies a lot of what sparks group flow, a term coined by a researcher named Keith Sawyer. Group flow happens when you have a group of people with a shared goal, open communication, a sense of risk, total engagement.
So the magic of Camp 4 wasn't just the climbers themselves, but the environment they created, like this giant group flow trigger.
Right, and group flow, it's not some mystical thing, it's something we can cultivate. Sawyer identified 10 social triggers that amplify group flow. Things like clearly defined shared goals, active listening, a healthy dose of risk to keep things interesting.
So we can actually create environments that foster flow, not just for ourselves, but for teams, for groups.
Absolutely. And the benefits.
Yeah.
Huge. Group flow not only boosts creativity and productivity, but also strengthens relationships and creates this sense of shared purpose.
It's like the ultimate team building exercise, but with superpowers. But, okay, gotta ask, this all sounds amazing, but is there a downside? Is flow always a good thing?
That's a really important question. As powerful as flow is, it's not without its risks. That constant drive to push limits, to chase those peak experiences, it can lead to, well, dangerous situations, and sometimes it can create this distorted sense of invincibility.
Right, we've seen that with tragic accidents, athletes pushing too far, not really recognizing their limits.
It's a good reminder that flow, as powerful as it is, can be, well, maybe a bit of a double-edged sword. And the downsides aren't just physical. Flow addiction is real.
Flow addiction.
Yeah, it can lead to burnout, depression, feeling isolated, even struggling to find meaning outside those flow states. It's like any powerful tool, it needs to be handled with care.
So where does that leave us? I mean, most of us aren't like jumping out of airplanes or surfing giant waves. How do we find that balance, that flow in our everyday lives?
That's the thing about flow. It's not just for extreme athletes. It's a universal human experience. We can all access it, just in different ways.
Okay, so how do we actually do that? How do we find our own flow state without, risking life and limb?
It starts with understanding the triggers. Remember how we talk about those external triggers like the environment, and internal ones like setting clear goals? And then there are the social triggers, how we create flow together.
Right, like that group flow thing with the climbers at Camp 4.
Exactly. They accidentally created this environment that just amplified flow. Shared goals, that sense of risk, open communication, those are all social triggers. And they can work whether you're climbing a mountain or working on a project at the office.
So it's not just about finding flow in our own lives, it's about creating it with others too.
Exactly. Flow isn't a solo sport. It's something we can experience collectively, and the results, honestly, they can be even more powerful that way.
Man, this is making me rethink how I approach like everything, my work, my relationships. If we can intentionally create those environments, those triggers, imagine what we could accomplish.
It really is an exciting thought. And the cool thing is it's not just about like hitting external goals or being more productive. Flow has this incredible power to transform our internal experience.
Yeah.
It connects us to a deeper sense of purpose, to creativity, to honestly pure joy.
So it's not just peak performance we're talking about here, it's like peak humanness.
I love that. Peak humanness. It really captures the essence of it.
Hmm.
And hey, that's what this whole deep dive has been about.
Yeah. Exploring what it means to be human, to push our limits, to find those moments of pure flow, whether it's on a mountaintop or in our everyday lives.
We've seen how these incredible athletes use flow to achieve the seemingly impossible.
Hmm.
They've shown us what's possible when we tap into that power.
And the best part is, it's not some superpower reserved for a select few. Flow is available to all of us. We just have to learn how to access it, cultivate it, and use it to create something amazing, both for ourselves and for the world around us.